Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and in this video I'm gonna take a look at the Lumix 12-35mm F2.8 Mark II zoom lens. This lens mounted on my G9 at the moment is a compact pro-grade standard zoom lens for Micro Four Thirds cameras. The focal length ranges from 12mm wide angle to a 35mm short telephoto, and the maximum aperture is constant f2.8 throughout the range. And this lens is, like I said, the Mark II version that came out in 2017. There's also a Mark I version that came out already in 2012. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure about the exact differences between these two lenses. The exterior is slightly different, but the optical construction is the same. However, this new Mark II version is rated splash, dust and freeze proof, but the original Mark I is only rated dust and splash proof. So I guess at least in the weather sealing department there is something different on this lens. And of course, compact is highly subjective, a matter of opinion, but I think this lens is rather compact considering the specifications and the features. The build quality of this lens is very good indeed. The exterior is mostly metal, the inner barrel is some high quality plastic. The lens extends slightly when zoomed to 35mm, but there's no unnecessary free play, and everything feels very solid and pro-grade. The zoom ring is super smooth and one of the smoothest I have ever experienced. The manual focus ring has nice resistance to it, but of course it's a fly-by wire or fly-by whatever fly focus system, electronic focusing system, so there's no real mechanical feedback like on a real mechanical manual focus. But that's the case in pretty much every autofocus lens. And like I already said, this is splash, dust and freeze proof design, and the freeze proof means -10 Celsius degrees up to or down to -10 Celsius degrees. There's only one switch on the side of the lens, and that's for the image stabilizer. And this lens comes with the lens hood, which is really good. As you probably know, I'm a big proponent of lens hoods. However, there's a minor design flaw with the lens hood. I like to place my lens like this, like the lens hood down on a table or whatever surface when I'm changing lenses, because it feels more like secure or safe like that, especially when the lens hood is on. If I put my lens with the mount side down, I feel I'm gonna damage the rear element. But the lens hood on this lens is so rounded, petal shaped that the lens doesn't want to stay upright if you place it like the front element down on some flat surface with the lens hood on. But other than that, the lens hood works fine, and you can reverse mount it on the lens for transportation or storage. I already said the lens is rather compact, and this lens weighs in at about 320 grams with the hood. And the filter thread is 58mm. And because this is rather compact lens, it feels very balanced on almost any Micro Four Thirds camera body, except maybe some of the very small cameras like the GX 880 for example. This feels almost like there's a small prime or a prime lens on the camera, and all the handling and shooting and everything is very nice with this lens. All in all, this lens feels like it's not going to hold you back in any situation. The optical construction is 14 elements in 9 groups, and there are 4 aspherical elements and 1 ultra-high refraction element and 1 extra low dispersion element. The minimum focusing distance is 25 centimeters, which is about 10 inches, I guess. And especially at 35 millimeters, that offers quite nice close-up capabilities. Not exactly like a macro, but very nice indeed if you occasionally need a close-up of something. And I already mentioned there's a switch on the side of the lens for the optical stabilizer, and indeed there is an optical stabilizer built into this lens, and this lens is dual I.S. compatible, and therefore enables you to handhold really long shutter speed fairly easily. And now is a good time for some test shots that I made on this lens. And fortunately here in Finland we are not in a complete lockdown, so I managed to go out and take some pictures. But I can assure you I was very careful and I didn't get too close to any strangers when I was taking those shots. But now let's take a look at the photos. And also consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already done so, and also sign up for my monthly newsletter. You can go to my website sulanto.fi, and there's also a link in the description. So what about the optical performance then? Well, in one word, it's really good. This lens is sharp and contrasty throughout the whole range and throughout all apertures, except the very smallest aperture or high number aperture, which is never recommended because of the diffraction. But something like f10, f11 is still very usable if you need all that depth of field for some reason. And if you are interested in the bokeh of this lens, I have another video where I'm comparing this lens to some other lenses. I'll put the link to that video at the end of this video so you can take a look if you are interested. I also found that the backlight performance of this lens is really good. The contrast holds together really nicely and you will not get any really bad reflections or flare in your shots, no matter how the sun or a strong light hits the front element. We all know already that the vignetting distortions and the chromatic aberrations are corrected in camera or in some RAW developers tool. So those are nothing to worry about. And I know that some purists are worried about the electronic corrections, but as long as they are not degrading the image quality visibly, I think they're just as fine. The autofocus of this lens is super fast and virtually silent. The manual focus is pretty good electronic manual focus, but I don't think you're gonna use manual focus much because the autofocus is so good and so really super fast. My conclusion with this lens is that it's a really good standard zoom lens for any Micro Four Thirds camera, and especially on Panasonic cameras because you can take advantage of the dual I.S. The major upsides with this lens are that it's sharp, compact, dust splash and freeze proof. It has constant f2.8 maximum aperture. I can't find any really bad downsides, but I think the telephoto end might be a bit short for some. But then again, you can't have everything in a small package like this with these specifications. Longer reach would mean a bigger size if the maximum aperture is the same. And I think Panasonic originally meant this lens to be together with the 35 to 100mm f2.8 lens, which is also really compact telephoto lens with a very good optical performance. And if you'd like a bit more reach, in your standard zoom lens, then the Leica 12-60mm is a good choice. It has a lot more reach at the telephoto end, but of course the maximum aperture is variable from f2.8 to f4, so the extra reach comes at the cost of a slightly slower maximum aperture. But this lens is also quite compact. If this was a constant f2.8, this would be a lot bigger lens. And if you'd like a compact, complete setup ready for everything, here's my suggestion, my serving suggestion. 2 camera bodies, and the standard lens would be the 12-35mm and the telephoto lens would be the 50-200mm f2.8 f4, and then you would also have 2 primes, the 25mm f1.4 and the 50mm f1.8. 2 camera bodies and 4 lenses, you'd be ready for pretty much anything. And here's the bokeh video I was talking about, and here's my review of the 50-200mm telephoto lens. Thank you so much for watching, keep safe, and I'll see you in the next one.